And we're back. Ready to do another Free Advice Friday. I know I messed everything up this week because I had to change the time. I had some coaching sessions earlier, and so that impacted things. But I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully, everybody's able to join in, ask some questions, get some answers, have some fun, hang out, relax. I mean, come on, it's 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon. Are you really still working? Be honest. Are you really still working? Looking forward to spending some time with you, though, and looking forward to hanging out and answering your voiceover questions. So for those of you who are new to Free Advice Friday, here's what's going on. I'm going to hang out here for a little while live on YouTube, and I am going to answer your voiceover questions. If there are questions that you have that you would like to get answered, you can type those questions into the comments, and when those questions pop up on my screen, I will answer them. That's it. That is how Free Advice Friday works. It's not super complicated here. Just looking forward to spending some time hanging out and helping where I can. So I know it's Friday the 13th. No bad luck here today. Only free advice. That's the plan anyway. No bad luck. Only free advice. It's almost 85 degrees in Southern Ontario, Canada today. There's a part of me that actually debated whether or not I was going to do this live from my backyard. I'm actually in my basement. I'm in my office, which is in my basement, which is why I'm wearing a hoodie, because it's actually freezing in my basement. But it's so nice and sunny and warm outside. And I kind of just want to be outside right now. But I was like, nah, you know what? It might be a little bit too noisy. Maybe not such a good idea. So we'll hang out inside and we will do Free Advice Friday. So again, if you've got a question that you would like to get answered, something that you want to talk about on the business and marketing side of voiceover, please type that question into the comments. It pops up on my screen and I'm here to answer your questions. No strings attached. That's how it works. Quick, easy, simple, hopefully helpful. Laura says, do you type hashtags into your replies when engaging on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, or is it necessary? Actually, that's a really interesting question. All three of those platforms obviously now give you the ability to use hashtags. They work a little bit differently around on some of the different platforms. With LinkedIn and Instagram in particular now, they're suggesting no more than 5 hashtags. Now, Instagram obviously gives you the ability to put in up to 30 hashtags, but they say that the first 5 are really where the value is. And so anything beyond that, probably not going to work as well. So I think that there definitely needs to be some strategy when you are choosing the hashtags that you are going to use. As to putting them into replies, I don't know that it makes any difference putting them into replies. That's actually something I'm going to have to look into that a little bit. I think that really the value of the hashtag primarily comes from the post itself and from the ability to index the posts. So I don't know that there's a whole lot of value. Now, Twitter would be different. I think Twitter could certainly make a difference with hashtags and replies, but that's mostly just because of the structure of the platform and how everything displays in your feed. But if I was leaving a comment for somebody on LinkedIn, I don't know that there's value in putting in the comments because I don't know that the comments index the same way. So I think really there, my focus would primarily just be on choosing the right hashtags in the post itself. And that's a whole other subject that is worth discussing too, and making sure that you're choosing the right hashtags. So often voice actors go on to these different social media platforms and they all use hashtag voiceover, hashtag voice acting, hashtag voice talent, hashtag voice actor. Do you know who's following those hashtags? Other voice actors, which is one of the reasons why when you're sharing your content on social media and you're using all of those hashtags, you've probably noticed that a lot of the people that are engaging with your content are other voice actors. Well, is that the audience that you're ultimately trying to reach? Most of us, we want to reach potential voice buyers, right? The goal is to get ourselves in front of the producers, the creative directors, the instructional designers, whoever it is that we're ultimately trying to market to. And so I think that there needs to be a little bit more strategy put into place when it comes to choosing the hashtags that you are using. So if I am targeting a post towards instructional designers or writing a post about e-learning or my e-learning work, I'm using hashtags that audience is using. Hashtag e-learning, hashtag instructional designer, hashtag learning and development, whatever it may be. I want my post to come up for that audience. So when it comes time to choosing which hashtags you're going to use, one of the most important things that you need to be thinking about are what hashtags are my buyers using? What hashtags are the people that I want to see this post? Which ones are they using? And odds are, if you're doing this for marketing purposes, it's not hashtag voiceover, hashtag voice acting, hashtag voice talent. So make sure that you're being strategic with that. And one of the easiest ways to figure out what the hashtags are that your buyers are using is paying attention to your buyers' content. If it's on Instagram, make sure that you're following these production companies or these instructional designers or these advertising agencies or the creative directors or the game developers or whoever it is that you're trying to reach. Make sure that you're following them and then pay attention to the hashtags that they're using in the posts and in the content that they share on the platform. That's going to give you an idea of what some of the popular hashtags are for that audience. So then it allows you to be a little bit more strategic. Laura, I hope that answers your question. I know it probably goes a little bit beyond what your initial question was, specifically with putting them into replies, but hopefully a little extra advice in there on the strategic use of hashtags. Laura says, do you engage with casting directors a lot? I engage with video production, etc. And if you do, have you received welcome engagement back from casting directors? I don't do a ton of engagement with casting directors, but that's primarily because commercial work, which is what most casting directors are casting, is not something I do a ton of. I will do commercials. I do my auditions, my commercial auditions for my agent. I do commercials for some of the clients that I work with, but they tend to be more on a local and regional level. Casting directors tend to be casting commercials that are at a, more of a national level or a larger regional level. So because that's not a genre that I pursue a ton and that I work in a ton, I'm not really making a whole lot of effort to get engaged with them or get connected with them. I am connected to some of them on LinkedIn, and obviously I will comment on their posts. I'm connected to some of them on Twitter. I've shared some of their stuff on Twitter before. I see they've posted casting for a particular job or something that I'm not the right fit for or whatever. I don't think most people do not create social media profiles to be left alone. You know what I'm saying? Like, if your goal is to create a social media profile and have zero engagement and zero followers, then you're doing social media wrong in the first place. And so what I mean by that is, for most of these casting directors, I think that if they are putting in the effort to make themselves visible on social media, so whether that is through LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram, I don't think that there is anything wrong with making that connection. But I do think that how you treat that connection makes a difference. There's a difference between connecting with a casting director to engage with the content that they're sharing, maybe to learn from the content that they're sharing. Many of them will share helpful tips and advice and tricks and little anecdotes of the life of a casting director or whatever. I'm sure some of them occasionally are sharing castings. I've seen that happen before as well. So I think the most important thing is that you respect that relationship and you respect the content that they're sharing. Connecting with them for the sole purpose of just asking them every single time if they've got an opportunity for you, or begging them for work, or begging them for auditions or whatever, I think that's where you disrespect the relationship, and that's where it becomes a problem. So would I connect with them? Absolutely, I would connect with them. I would just be strategic in how I treat that engagement. That's a really, really good question, because I think that there is a differentiating factor there. I think following along with their content, learning from the things that they have to share, there's a big difference between that and just constantly asking for work. And I would not want to connect with them and just constantly be asking for work. Really good question. Again, for those of you jumping in, welcome to Free Advice Friday. This is just an opportunity for me to hang out here live on YouTube. And if you've got a voiceover business and marketing related question, please type it in the comments. It will come up on my screen. I will answer that question for you. I always used to do Free Advice Friday live in the VOpreneur Facebook group, but I was having some issues with Facebook not allowing me to do some of those things. And so ultimately, I decided to move that Free Advice Friday broadcast over to YouTube. So that's what's going on here right now. I've been doing this for years, although I've only been doing it on YouTube for a few weeks now. But don't be shy. If you've got a question you want to get answered, please, by all means, the door is open. anything that is related to voiceover, particularly the business and marketing side of things, which is where my expertise lies. I am happy to answer those questions for you. So don't be shy. Type your questions in the comments. Are talent agents that pull auditions from Casting Frontier, etc., worth signing up with? I have an agent like this, but I wonder whether all my auditions are casting calls. And you know what? In most cases, all of your auditions are casting calls regardless, particularly when you start to get to the national level. I think that's one of the misconceptions is that we think that our agent is the only one that's got this job. And I think there are a lot of times when that is actually not the case. And so if you think that online casting is a cattle call and, oh, I'm not even going to bother submitting for this job because, 200 people have already submitted. Look at how many people could be submitting for some of these national commercials. And you might find that 2,000 people are submitting. So I think that happens probably more than we realize. Agents are drawing their audition opportunities from a lot of different places. Once upon a time, everybody used Voice Bank, right? If you have more than one agent, there's probably been times where you've seen the same audition come in from more than one agent, and then you've had to decide which agent you were going to audition for. And so I think there is a lot of that type of stuff going on. Where regional agents come into play is they're going to have exclusivity potentially, or at least have a client base within their region. So, you got an agent in Texas. That agent is probably going to have a client base in Texas, and they're going to bring you audition opportunities from Texas, but they might use a service like you've mentioned, Casting Frontier or whatever, to find some of the bigger audition opportunities that might be more national audition opportunities. And so that's where they're drawing from. So, hey, at the end of the day, an audition is an audition. And I think that I think it's probably fairly safe to assume that if you are submitting for anything national in particular, you are part of a cattle call. And you're part of a cattle call with some of the best of the best of the best of the best, which is why people don't, that's why you don't hear about, there's not a lot of voice actors that are booking that stuff on a regular basis. And what I mean by that is one voice actor who's consistently booking all of these things because, there is massive competition out there. All right. Susan wants to talk CRM. She says, what should we look for in a CRM? What makes one work better for some versus another? Oh, here we go. All right. CRM, customer relationship management software. By and large, most of the CRMs that you're going to find will do many of the same things because they all are created for the same purpose. Different CRMs might have slightly different bells and whistles, but most of them will primarily do the same things. There are a few things that I think are essential to a good CRM. First and foremost, obviously, I need to be able to put all of my contacts in there, and I need to have some sort of a filing system. We'll say filing system for how I am going to organize my database. A lot of CRMs will give you the ability to do tagging. So with tagging, what that is allowing you to do is to add data to individual contacts, which would help you to sort your database down the road. So for example, I put Joe Smith into my CRM and I tag Joe Smith as e-learning, explainer video, and corporate video, because those are the types of work that Joe Smith does. That's what his production company does. So now Joe Smith is in my CRM and he's tagged for e-learning, explainer video, corporate video. Maybe I also throw a tag on for the US so that I know that Joe Smith is a US based lead because I have clients all over the world, right? So tagging gives you the ability to drill down your database and be able to do much more advanced segment searches. Most CRMs come with that ability. I would definitely want a CRM that gives me the ability to do that. The more targeted that you can get with your CRM database, the more successful you are going to be with your CRM. So that's one thing I would be looking out for. Another thing I want to see in a CRM is there needs to be some sort of automated reminder system, which most CRMs come with. So for example, in Nimble, they have what they call the touch cycle, and you can choose from a drop-down menu. I want to be reminded to contact this person weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, or you can set a custom reminder. And so that I think comes into play because the larger that your database becomes, the harder it becomes for you to remember everybody that you need to maintain communication with. So having a CRM system that builds in those automated reminders is really helpful because I can log into my Nimble CRM today and I can see a list of people who I should be contacting today based on the reminder cycles that I've set into place. So I think that's another really important option. I also think that a good CRM will give the ability to do some sort of group messaging and or email integration, which most of them do. Lots of different CRM options that are out there. I would say that you can expect to pay anywhere from 0 to probably $25 or $30 a month for a good professional level CRM for somebody at our level, like as a voice actor, as a small business owner, as a solopreneur. Obviously, when you start getting into more enterprise grade CRMs, you can literally be paying hundreds of dollars a month. But for what most voice actors need, that's absolutely not necessary. So I would be looking again, probably between from free up to $25 or $30 a month for CRM. Nimble is the one that I use. I'm a big fan of Nimble. I've been using it for about 5 or 6 years now. Cloze, Cloze, is another CRM I know a lot of voice actors use. Zoho is another popular one. Brad Newman from Upper Level Hosting has Upper Level CRM, which is a basic CRM, but it's something that it continues to be in development. That could be something that you look at. A lot of voice actors talk about HubSpot because their basic free CRM is a great introductory into CRM. But again, it's pretty basic for free. Gravy for the Brain, if you're a member of Gravy for the Brain, they offer a basic CRM. Bidalgo, if you're a member of Bidalgo, the casting site, they offer a basic CRM. So there's a lot of different options that are out there. And the other thing I would say with the CRM is the sooner you start with the CRM, the better. Because if you wait until you have a really large database, it's going to be a lot of work for you to go back through and customize that database and customize every single contact in that database to make your CRM searchable the way that you want it to be. I ran into that problem. It was a nightmare. So I do think that the sooner that you start with the CRM, the better. Susan, hopefully that helps. Hopefully that gives you a kind of a basic rundown and some of the features that you want to be looking for. Lori says, when you get a project offer from a big company with deep pockets, but they are making a lowball offer, do you take the work to add the client to your resume or pass it by? I passed it by. Actually, Lori, the very first thing that I would do is I would counter. One of the things that we have to get comfortable with as voice actors and VOpreneurs, because we're running a business, is negotiation. So the very first thing that I would do in that instance is say, hey, thank you so much for the audition and the opportunity to submit for your project. I appreciate it. And then I would explain, for a project like this, my regular rate would be X, which I know is above your current budget. Is there an opportunity for us to negotiate on this at all? Maybe they're going to say no, in which case you can walk away. Maybe they're going to say yes, in which case you have an opportunity to negotiate. So I would never just walk away right out of the gate. I would always want to try to open the door to negotiation first. I think that you run the risk of leaving money on the table if you don't at least try to open the door to negotiation. And I think this is a misconception with a lot of voice actors too, is they think that if they try to negotiate, that the client's just going to walk away, right? Oh, forget you. Well, there's a couple of things to take into consideration if that happens. First and foremost, if a client is giving you a lowball offer and they're not even willing to try to negotiate with you, is that really a client that you want to work with in the first place? Probably not. So I would not be afraid to let them go. Second of all, I think that if you're dealing with a legitimate company, they're used to vendors trying to negotiate. And so where you think, and I don't mean you specifically, Lori, I mean where the voice actor thinks that if I try to negotiate, I'm going to get in trouble. I think when you try to negotiate, it actually ends up making you look more professional. So my 2 cents on that one. Never be afraid to ask the question. Always be willing to try to negotiate. Sometimes it's going to work. Sometimes it's not, but you'll never know if you don't at least ask the question. All right, let's see. And by the way, If you just accept the lowball offer out of the gate, what you have just got yourself is a client that is always going to lowball you, right? You set precedent at that point. So that's another reason that you have to be very careful. That's another reason why I think you always want to try to negotiate, because you don't want to set a dangerous precedent. Let's see what else is going on. Phil commenting on what Lori has to say, talking about the counter offer. Of course, that's the way to do it. Again, for those of you joining in, this is Free Advice Friday. This is your opportunity to ask questions related to the business and marketing side of voiceover, and I am here to offer advice for you for free on a Friday. So please don't hesitate to type your questions into the comments. I'm keeping an eye on them, and we are working our way through, and I'm going to answer those questions for you. So let's see, where are we going next? John says, many websites have copy written in the third person. This seems impersonal. Do you recommend writing in the first or third person? This is a really great question, because there are a couple of different sides to this coin. So as a voice actor, I am the brand. If you want to work with me, you are actually going to work with me. And so for me personally, I made the decision to write everything in the first person, because I'm the guy. I'm the business. I'm the voice actor. I'm the one doing the website and all of that sort of stuff. So I want people to know that they're going to work with me directly. So it was a personal decision, and it was kind of a strategic decision from a marketing standpoint. Now, let's talk about writing in the third person. It has been said that SEO prefers third person narrative. I have never been able to actually confirm this, but I've heard it said repeatedly that SEO prefers third person. The other reason why people would write in the third person is to try to appear larger than they seem. But that's usually where, let's say you've got a company that only has 2 or 3 employees, but you don't want to sound like a company with only 2 or 3 employees. And so you write stuff in the third person to make the company seem larger than it actually is. And so that's one of the reasons why you will see some voice actors that write in the third person, because they want it to sound like, oh, my staff wrote this for me. My PR agent wrote this for me, or whatever. So I think there can be arguments made for both sides. Is one better than the other? I don't know that one is specifically better than the other from a voiceover standpoint. I think it probably comes down to personal choice. For me, personal choice was, I want to sound personal. I want to make that more intimate connection, to let them know that, this is me. You're just dealing with me. I'm the guy. And so that's why I chose the first person. Hopefully that answers your question, John. It is a really valid question, and it's something that we do need to be thinking about when it comes time to writing copy. I will say, whichever you choose to go with, whether you do first person or third person narrative, make sure that you stick with that throughout the website. Don't flip back and forth between the two. I think it's important to be consistent. All right, let's see. Lori says the opening bid was so low, they were never making it up to GVA rates. And that's entirely possible, right? That's entirely possible. Lori says, by the way, I love the 3 p.m. time slot. Yeah, the 3 p.m. time slot, it doesn't always work for me, because usually I have to go pick my kids up from school. Today, I didn't have to, so I was able to make it happen. But I don't know. I'm open to trying some different time slots. We'll see. We'll see what people prefer. Let's see. Briscoe VO. Hey, Mark. Hey, everyone. Mark, should you list your agents on your website if you are represented? Ooh, this is another interesting question, because there's 2 really valid arguments to be made here. So on this hand, let's make the argument for listing your agents on your website. By listing your agents on your website, you add a level of credibility, right? If this person is represented, they must be legitimate. So it can make you seem more professional. Remember that people that are checking out your website, many of them probably don't know you. They're not familiar with who you are, with your work or whatever. And so by seeing that you have representation, it's kind of a form of social proof, right? It backs up that you're a professional voice actor, because only professional voice actors would have agency representation, right? Not necessarily, but that's the narrative, right? So that's one of the arguments to be made for including your representation on your website, because it does add a level of credibility, and it does make you seem more legitimate. Now, let's argue the flip side, the other hand of putting your agents on your website. Some companies, some buyers, let's say some buyers, they may come to your website and see your agents listed on your website, and they may think if you have not done a good job in writing copy for your website, that they can only go through your agents. And so that might scare some people off because there is also a misconception of the agency model that, it's so much more expensive and blah, 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 blah. So if a buyer comes to your website and sees your agents and all of their contact information and thinks that they can only go through your agent, it could potentially scare them off. Now, we can fix that problem in the language that we use on our website and how we write our copy. The other argument for not listing agents on your website is if a buyer is coming to the website, I want the buyer to work through me because I built the website, I paid for the website. That should be my job. That should be my booking. And by listing my agents on my website, I'm basically running the risk that a buyer may contact my agent to book me, in which case now I have to pay commissions on a job that really should have been mine. So those are the two sides of the coin. Neither one of them is wrong. Neither one of them is bad. Neither one of them is right. But those are the two sides of the coin. And with that information in mind, hopefully that gives you the ability to make a little bit better decision as to what is most appropriate for you. I think if you're going to list them, just make it clear that people can still work with you directly. I think that's what's really important. Let's see, where are we going? Don't mind me, guys. I just write time codes as we go so I can add chapters into the video later. Laura says, I used to send mass emails with Gmass. Now I use LinkedIn as my home base. If I were to mass email something in the future, what mass email marketing company do you recommend? I think MailChimp is probably the easiest. It's probably the most popular. It does allow you to have a free account up to 2,000 subscribers, or actually, let me preface that. It used to allow you a free account up to 2,000 subscribers. I haven't looked at MailChimp for a while, so I don't know for sure if that's still the case, but that was always the case. You could send emails for free up to 2,000 subscribers, but it did have MailChimp branding in it. So, there's a MailChimp logo at the bottom of your email. But I think MailChimp is probably the most common. I think the other one that I have seen voice actors use before and seen some other people use in the past is Constant Contact. I'm not quite as familiar with Constant Contact, but it is another one that I've seen people use. I know that it is very reliable. So those are a couple of ones that might be worth looking into for your ability to do mass emailing. But I would also say certain CRMs give you the ability to do mass emailing as well, or at least larger group messages. So Nimble, for example, does give you the ability to do 100, a group message to up to 100 people. And so if you're using a CRM, that might be a workaround for that as well. You might not need to add secondary software into the mix because you might be able to do group messages through your CRM. Hopefully that answers your question, Laura. Graham says, great food for thought regarding listing agents. It's really one of those things where I don't think there's a wrong way to do it. I think you have to decide ultimately what's best for you and what works for you. I will say, and I recently did a podcast episode on putting together your voiceover resume. I do have my agents on my voiceover resume. Thanks for the answer. I will be going to Mavo this year. Really hope to see you there. It's my first one. Do you have any recommendations as to how to take it all in? I think with any conference, the key to any conference is going in with a learning objective. When you just go in, it can feel really overwhelming because you literally have an opportunity to learn from dozens of coaches and mentors in potentially dozens of different genres, and that can feel really overwhelming. I think if you're a little bit more strategic, you might be able to get a little bit more bang for your buck. And what I mean by that is if you go in with the purpose of, this time around, I really want to focus on this genre and this genre, or I really want to focus on commercial work, but I also want to focus on marketing. Then you can plan out your schedule based on what your learning objectives are, rather than just going willy-nilly from session to session to session to session. I think that's one of the things that I would be thinking about for getting the most out of it. The other thing I will say, and I know this is going to make me sound like a completely old fart, sleep. Like, honestly, sleep. I think sometimes when we go to these voiceover conferences, we get so excited to see our friends and our colleagues and meet new people and all that sort of stuff that we end up staying up way too late in the bar or in the lounge area or whatever. And then when the next morning comes and the sessions start at 8 o'clock and we're completely dragging our butts and we're exhausted. And now you're trying to go around and pay attention, but you actually just want to be asleep, or you didn't get out of bed and you are still asleep. And so now you've just paid hundreds of dollars to be at a conference where you're missing half the sessions. And so I'm going to be the old fart that's going to say, be responsible, make sure you go to bed, get some sleep, get up, actually enjoy the sessions, get what you paid for by attending the conference. I will be that guy. You can say, okay, Dad, what am I going to tell you? I think that's one of the ways that you get the most out of the event. That's all. Plan ahead of time, though. Look at who the speakers are going to be and figure out, yeah, you know what? These are the sessions that are really important to me because these are the learning objectives that I'm really trying to get in on. And I think that's going to help you in the long run. Shane says, now's your chance to gloat over the Red Sox taking 2 of 3 in Atlanta. Okay, Shane, seriously, we have 2 more wins than the Cincinnati Reds. There is absolutely nothing to gloat about with the Red Sox this year. So I am not even going to go there because it's embarrassing and we don't deserve it at this point. I am not at a point where I'm ready to give up on the season, but I will tell you that I am definitely at a point where I am feeling massive discouragement. And many times I just want to rip my TV off the wall. But I'm also one of the guys that has been saying for a couple of years now, ever since we traded Craig Kimbrell, we need a closer. We need a closer. I don't know why it's so hard for management to figure this out. The fact that they haven't figured it out yet is mind-boggling to me. But yes, there's no, I mean, I know we took 2 out of 3 against you, which was great, but those are like literally the only 2 games we've won in the last 3 weeks. And so it kind of doesn't count. Let's see what else is going on. Again, everybody, welcome to Free Advice Friday. This is the part of my week where I just like to hang out on YouTube and give advice for free on a Friday. That's it. It's a very complex thing that we got, that we got going on here. But if you've got a question related to the business and marketing side of voiceover, please type your question into the comments, and I am happy to offer up any kind of advice that I can on anything related to the business and marketing side of voiceover. That's what Free Advice Friday is all about. It's like literally, it's like getting a coaching session with me for free. And usually those cost $150 for an hour. So take it to your advantage and use it, and don't be shy and don't be afraid to ask questions. And chances are, if you have a question in your mind, somebody else is thinking that same question. So there's never any such thing as dumb questions. So don't be shy. Take advantage of it. Ask your questions, get your answers. That is what is going on here. That is what Free Advice Friday is all about. It's one of my favorite times of the week to just hang out and spend some time with you guys and give back a little bit to the community. So pop those questions into the chat. I am keeping an eye out for them. In the meantime, let me remind you about the new episode of the Everyday VOpreneur podcast, which I'm really excited about. I had the opportunity to interview Claire Dinsdale, and she is the organizer of 100 Voices Who Care. It's an organization that was launched at VO Atlanta, which was really cool. And it's something that I think that is really, really fun. And I hope that voice actors will look at. 100 Who Care is actually a global organization. There's about 900 different groups around the globe under the 100 Who Care banner. I'm actually a member of a group in my local community. Basically, the idea is once a quarter, the membership gets together. Charities have an opportunity, local charities have an opportunity to pitch. And when the pitch is done, the membership votes on which charity they're going to donate to. And the idea of the 100 is you've got 100 people who donate $100, which means that the winning charity at the meeting receives $10,000. Now, this is not limited to 100. That's just the concept that was originally started. And so you'll learn more about that if you listen to the episode of the podcast. But what Claire is really, really trying to do, she's trying to get her first 100 voice actors to sign up by the first meeting. And that first meeting is happening at the end of May. So listen to the episode, check out the interview, learn more about the organization. $100 commitment once a quarter, but times that by 100 voice actors, and that makes a huge impact for deserving local charities. And one of the things that we have always said about the voiceover community is that it is a very, very caring, very giving, very generous community. And I think this is an opportunity for us to really back that up. So again, listen to the episode of the podcast wherever fine podcasts are given away for free. You can click the link that I just threw here in the chat. The video, there's a video of it on YouTube. Obviously, there's no visuals, but you can listen to the podcast on YouTube if you would like, or wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, Amazon. It's everywhere. Definitely worth checking out. And the website is 100voiceswhocare.org. 100 Voices Who Care. Actually, you know what? Let me just throw that in the chat as well. Copy the link, paste it here. 100 Voices Who Care. There's the link. The website's really well done too. It'll answer a lot of your questions if you've got any more questions about it. But we cover a lot of ground in the podcast interview. All right, let's see. Susan says, I want to do kids' mobile apps. I'm assuming the best place to glean companies to market to is actually from my phone. Is there any other resource or things I can be doing to pursue that market? I 100% agree that one of the smartest places that you can be pursuing that is directly through your phone. Literally going into your app store and doing a search for, whatever those types of the mobile apps that you're looking for, kids education, kids e-learning, kids entertainment, whatever the category is within your app store, and then just starting to scroll your way through those apps and then looking for who the developers are of those apps. My guess is with some strategic Google searches, you could probably come up with a list or directory of some kind for mobile app developers or children's app developers or children's entertainment or, children's education, children's e-learning, whatever it may be. I think you could probably find some stuff through some strategic Google searches, but I definitely think the App Store would be a really smart place to start, and that's where I would start for sure. What are the 50 most popular kids mobile apps in the Apple App Store, and then start from there. And one of the nice things about doing that within the App Store is you're going to see who the developer is, and so now you've already got a website that you can click through to, so your job just got a little bit easier. So I think that's a really smart place to go. That is definitely where I would be looking if that was a genre that I was wanting to expand into. Laura says, I use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I can use it as a CRM to a certain extent. Creating company maps with notes, etc. I don't see scheduling though. Do you know if Navigator has scheduling like Nimble? Laura, actually, I don't, because I've never used the LinkedIn Sales Navigator before. Everything that I do on LinkedIn, I do with with the free profile, a free profile. I know they give me offers all the time to test out Sales Navigator, but I'm afraid if I test it out, I'll want to actually subscribe to it. So I've never actually done one of the tests before, so I'm not sure if there's the ability to do that in Sales Navigator or not. If there's anybody who's watching the video, watching the live stream right now, if there's any other folks who use LinkedIn Sales Navigator and you can answer that question, feel free to do that in the chat. Well, there you go. That comes up nicely with the question that John just asked in the group, which is, do you recommend LinkedIn subscription, or do you manage without it? I have always managed without it. LinkedIn is probably my primary source of voiceover work as far as social media is concerned. I use Facebook, I use LinkedIn, I use Twitter, I use Instagram. Here I am on YouTube right now. I use a lot of different social media platforms, but hands down, LinkedIn has been the one that has been the most successful for me as far as finding voiceover clients and creating voiceover opportunities for myself. And everything that I have been able to do on LinkedIn, I have been able to do with a free profile. I've had to get strategic. I've had to get creative along the way to work around some of the limitations, but absolutely, I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. And I do think that if you are smart with how you use the free version of LinkedIn, you can actually do a ton with it. For those of you that are interested in diving into LinkedIn a little bit further, let me throw a link here for you. I am going to be teaching a master class. Oh, hang on a second. Class, my keyboard's stalling out here on me. I'm going to be teaching a master class on LinkedIn on May the 31st, I believe is the date. May the 31st at 7 o'clock Eastern time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. The class is called Making Money with LinkedIn. It's going to be about a 2-hour masterclass. It will happen live on Zoom. If you can't attend live, though, you will get access to a video recording when the session is done. And in that class, I am going to deep dive into everything that I am doing in LinkedIn, how I'm using LinkedIn. I'm going to outline some of the features and benefits of LinkedIn, highlight some of the changes that have come into the platform in the last year or so. And so I'm going to be doing that class again on May the 31st. And everything that I teach in that masterclass is done with a free profile. And I always want to specify that because people sometimes think that, I can't do all this stuff unless I have the paid profile. Not true. Everything I teach in that masterclass, you can do with a free LinkedIn profile. That's what I use, is the free LinkedIn profile. So you can check the details on that at markscottcoaching.com and sign up. Again, May 31st, 7 o'clock Eastern. And if you can't attend live, you will get access to a video recording. So don't be afraid to sign up if you're unavailable on the 31st. Laura says, I love Navigator. It really organizes all the companies and leads within the companies really well. You can type notes within each one and outreach any activity. I mean, the nice thing about the LinkedIn Sales Navigator is that you don't have any limitations, right? With a free profile, there are some search limitations that you'll run into, but I also think that there are ways that you can work around some of those limitations if you do things strategically. And that's something that I teach in the masterclass. Mark, do you listen to any fun audio dramas or audio comedies when you take off your CEO hat? You know what? The only thing I ever listen to are podcasts, and the podcasts that I listen to are all generally business, entrepreneurial, and marketing style podcasts. I love listening to Tim Ferriss. One of the highlights of my month, usually, or quarter, because Tim Ferriss's podcast, sometimes his podcasts are like 2, 3, 4 hours long. So I love it when I have an opportunity to go for a long drive. Like if we're going up north to visit my wife's family, we're in the car for about 8.5 hours, 9 hours maybe. And it's like, oh, I get to listen to Tim Ferriss podcast today. This is so exciting. So I love listening to his podcast. Lewis Howes, School of Greatness. I really enjoy that podcast. Let's see, what are some of the other ones that I enjoy listening to? Donald Miller with Business Made Simple. JJ Peterson's Marketing Made Simple. I like listening to that one as well. When I really am trying to, this is how bad I am. Because, the question is, do you listen to any audio dramas or any audio comedies when you take your CEO hat off? I'm either going to listen to a podcast where I'm going to learn something, or I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch a documentary on Netflix or Amazon Prime where I'm going to learn something. So basically what I'm telling you is that I don't have the ability to relax. I think that's pretty much what I'm saying, which I know is really bad. But I do like to do it sometimes while I'm sitting by the fire in the backyard. So does that count? Steven says, I have a commercial demo, but want to pursue political as well. Do you think I need a political demo as well? And do you have marketing tips for pursuing political work? Steven, 100%. I think you're going to need to have a political demo if you want to get into that space. There's a lot of competition in that space. There's a lot of really good competition in that space. My understanding, and I don't do political work myself, but my understanding from the people that I've talked to is it's really, really hard to get into. But once you are in, you're good to go. Knowing that that's how hard it is to get in means you definitely want to be putting your best foot forward. And so I do absolutely think if that's a genre that you are interested in pursuing, I would be looking at getting a political demo. And if I was going to get a political demo done, I would be having a conversation with J. Michael Collins. Again, it's not a genre that I'm interested in. Although I feel like there's probably a lot of money to be made there when I would say there's a lot of money to be made there when the election cycle is on. But does anybody else feel like we live in a perpetual state of election cycle now? Like it just literally never ends. So it seems like there's always money to be made there. But that would be my advice to you, Stephen. If that's a genre that you're interested in pursuing, I would say definitely you're going to have a demo. and I would talk to J. Michael about getting that demo. And then from there, it's a matter of connecting with candidates and campaigns and probably local organizations, whether you're doing Democratic, Republican, conservative, liberal, whatever country and province and state and party and whatever. You would be looking to contact some of their local associations and pursuing it that way. Lori makes a really good point regarding political demos. You got to be willing to get nasty. And that's one of the reasons why I can't do it. I just can't. Some of the things that I hear in political commercials, it just makes my stomach turn. And I could not be that guy. I'm a Canadian. I don't know. What do I tell you? I just can't be that guy. I've heard it said that there's a separation that's starting to happen where there is the generalized political demo, and then there's the political attack demo. And so if you're willing to do political attack, it sounds like there's even more opportunity for you, but not everybody, because not everybody is willing to do the political attack. And so that's definitely something. And I think to a degree, you probably also are going to have to choose a side, right? And so, which, I mean, that's personal choice for everybody, but definitely worth a conversation with somebody like J. Michael Collins, if that's an area that you're interested in going into. So many great questions today, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out, and thank you for asking your questions. Thank you for watching the live stream, for engaging with me. I do appreciate it. Again, if you've got a voiceover question that you would like to get answered, please don't hesitate to type it into the comments. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to answer your questions and here to offer advice, helpful advice in any way that I can. Laura says, I have to say I've been hired for several attack ads, probably the sass in my voice. And hey, I mean, look, political campaigns are not getting any friendlier. I think anybody that has ever experienced any kind of political campaign, regardless of what country you live in, regardless of what party you support, regardless of whether it was a regional, a state or provincial, a federal, whatever, man, political ads, sometimes they get harsh. Like they get really hardcore. I just can't do it. I can't do it. Not that guy. What else you want to talk about? What can I help you with? What questions can I answer for you on Free Advice Friday? I've been looking at StreamYard. I've been playing around with OBS. I've been looking at Riverside.fm. I've been looking at a couple of different options for doing the software for doing live streaming, trying to maybe spice up Free Advice Friday a little bit. Looking at the possibility of being able to bring in a guest or maybe take a live call or something like that, just to kind of have some fun with it. There's a lot of different options that are out there. Haven't picked anything yet, but really enjoying doing it on the YouTube platform. By far, the feedback as far as doing it on the YouTube platform has been all positive versus previously I did it inside of the VOpreneur Facebook community. And I guess not as many people have access to it there, or it wasn't as easy for people to get notified when it was going on there. And so YouTube has definitely become the popular choice for that. So for those of you that are watching and you're new or you're not sure what's going on, I'm here to answer your questions. If you got a voiceover business and marketing related question, I am happy to answer that question for you. Do not be shy. There's no such thing as dumb questions. There's no such thing as bad questions. Somebody's coming to say hi. Hang on a second. Speaking of guests, we have a special guest appearance. Oh, she just ran away. You coming back, baby? You want to come and say hi? Oh, maybe not. You gonna come say hi? Hey, you gonna say hi? Oh, you're waving to everybody. Hey, you waving to everybody? Say hello, everybody. Hello. Oh, say hello. Hello. She's like, Mommy, can't believe you just took that from me. What in the world? Hello. Can you wave? Uh-oh. No, not uh-oh. Say hello. Huh. Are you a happy baby? Yeah. You a happy baby? Yeah. Yeah? Yeah. Did you have a good nap? You just woke up. Did you have a good nap? Yeah. Yeah? You have a good nap? You're still looking a little sleepy. And you definitely got the crazy hair. What do you think? You say hello?
I like this.
You like this? Hey, I like this. You got smiles? Oh, there's some smiles. Hey, baby, there's some smiles. All right. Daddy's got to go back to work. Say bye-bye.
Dada.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Dada.
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 Hey? Mwah. This is the trick. This is what I learned. Actually, somebody suggested this to me in my mastermind group. They said the problem is you're bringing Kaylee in at the beginning of the broadcast, and then people see her, and then they all leave. And so if you actually want people to stick around longer, then you should not bring her in until the end of the broadcast. And then they keep watching, wondering whether or not she's going to make a guest appearance. And so, see, look at that. I'm learning something new every day. Actually, that's not at all what happened. What happened was we're doing Free Advice Friday later. She was napping. She just woke up. But there you go. Edwin says, hey, Mark, what do you think of Stream Decks like hotkeys or macro keys? Sorry, I asked last week, was hiding at work. I have not played around with any of those things, although I have been looking at them because I've been thinking about if I'm going to start doing some sort of fancier live stream, I might need to upgrade and find some different toys for doing something like that. But it's something that I haven't really played around with a lot yet. I'm intrigued by it, though. Susan says, I like the 3 p.m. time slot. I have VO Heaven workouts until 2:30. Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to be able to always do the 3 o'clock time slot. Again, I mentioned earlier, usually 3 p.m. time slot, I got to go and pick up my kids, pick them up from school. But today it just worked out. Steven says, I'm building my isolation booth myself. What do you recommend regarding treatment inside the booth? I think it depends on what you're doing. So, I mean, I could tell you my booth, Steven. I built it. I did 2x6 walls. I put in extra insulation. It's drywalled on both sides. And I have a couple of panels in front of me, like on the wall in front of me. And I have a panel behind me. And that's it. Carpet on the floor and a panel above my head. I think sometimes voice actors put floor to ceiling acoustic foam and all of that sort of stuff. And I don't know that it's always necessary. I think there are a couple of factors that come into play there. I think one, where is the booth inside of your house and how quiet is that place? What is the shape of your booth? One of the smartest things that I did was putting an angled wall in my booth. So that helped with a lot of sound deflection. I think the microphone that you're using makes a big difference inside of the space as well and dictates a little bit with regards to the treatment. I can tell you, I used Prime Acoustic panels. Let me just Google that very quickly. Prime Acoustic. There they are, Prime Acoustic. And I used a London 8. Actually, I think it might have been a London 10. But anyway, here's the link to the panels that I used. I am not a sponsor. Prime Acoustic is not a sponsor. Acoustic panels. I'm really happy with those. They look really great, and they sound really great. And so I think one of the things that I would suggest is before you go too crazy, once you've got your booth built, before you go too crazy on putting up panels and all of that sort of stuff, I would strongly suggest reaching out to somebody like Uncle Roy Yokelson, who surprisingly is not on the broadcast today. But I would definitely reach out to somebody like Uncle Roy and get him to listen to the space, and he will be able to actually give you a better idea of here's what you need. You want to put in enough, but you don't want to put in too much because why spend money you don't have to, right? And so I think that's where it's worth consulting with a professional once the booth is built and ready to go. And somebody like Uncle Roy would be able to listen to the space with your microphone and you in the space and be able to say, you know what, put some panels here, or try these panels, or get these bass traps or whatever. I think that is, I think that's the way that I would go. I mean, that is what I did, right? I built my booth. I talked to Uncle Roy actually before I built my booth, and then I had him listen to it after it was built, and we figured out panel placement. And then once the panels were in place, then I got him to set up my Adobe Audition and some of my editing based on my microphone in my booth, my space and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's the way to go there, Stephen. It's exciting when you get to build your own booth or make a nice space for yourself. Hopefully you're making a nice space for yourself. Cody says, hey, Mark, love Free Advice Friday. Quick question. In the animation gaming space, do you recommend having one demo for both or separate demos for animation and video games? I definitely think I would want to have separate demos. Animation has changed a lot. And so I think part of it too depends on what kind of animation you're going after. When you are looking at, like, watch Disney Pixar movies. So many of the Disney Pixar movies now are just real voices, right? They're not cartoons. Now, are there cartoon voices? Absolutely there are. But that's where I think there's such a broad range of what goes on in animation, and there's also a very broad range of what goes on in video games. So I think if you have the means to get both of those demos, I definitely think that it would be worth it for you to get both of those demos. Booth is 4x6. Oh, that's a good size. Definitely some room to move around in there. MDF 3-inch thick walls. Should you pick a microphone on the basis of your voice type? I do think that that's really important because it's really easy. If you go into a Facebook group and you say, hey, what microphone should I buy? You're going to get, you should buy a Neumann 103. You should buy a Neumann 102. You should buy a 416. You should buy this. You should buy that, right? But it does make a difference. I think that it does make a difference on your voice and your vocal type. One of the things that I suggest, and Uncle Roy suggests this as well, we talked about this in a podcast interview I did with them. Find out either if there's a studio around you, depending on where you live. If there's a local studio, can you go into the studio and can you test some mics? Or is there a rental, like a pro audio rental place where you could go in and rent 3 or 4 different mics for a day and bring them home and test them in your space with your voice and see if one fits you better or if one sounds a little bit better. I do think that that's a really important thing. It tends to, I don't know if it makes as much of a difference on tone specifically as much as things like sibilance and mouth noise and all of that sort of stuff. Obviously, the microphone depends, or how well the microphone is going to sound depends on the space that you're recording into. That makes a huge difference, right? You can have a Neumann U87, which is an absolutely gorgeous microphone, but if it's not in a well-treated space, it's just not going to sound good. And it doesn't matter what your voice sounds like at that point. But I do think that testing out some different microphones is a good idea. Let me, hang on, let me pull up a link here. I'll post the interview that I did with Uncle Roy. We talked about some of that stuff, and he actually makes some microphone suggestions in that interview. Let me put this here. There we go. If you want to check out that episode of the podcast, Home Voiceover Studio Basics with Uncle Roy Yokelson, it's episode 150 of the podcast. We talk about interfaces, microphones, treating your space, all of that sort of stuff. Really, really good episode. And Uncle Roy's a great guy. If you reach out to him directly and ask him some questions, he's always willing to help too. All right. What time is it? I got time for one more question. Who wants to get the last question on Free Advice Friday? Thank you again, everybody, for hanging out, for watching, for asking your questions, for participating. I always love answering your questions because it keeps me sharp. It also helps me to figure out what kind of things I can do to help you better. You know, the questions that come up on Free Advice Friday, sometimes they inspire YouTube videos. Sometimes the questions that come up on Free Advice Friday inspire podcasts. So I'm always looking forward to doing this and hearing what you guys are working on, what you need help with, what questions you need answers to. So thank you for joining in and being a part of it. Again, I got time for one more question. If somebody wants to ask one final question, I did want to throw this in as well. I'm going to put in a quick link to a video here. LinkedIn recently, like this week, they announced a whole bunch of changes to the LinkedIn algorithm. And some of those changes in the algorithm might actually impact the way that you use LinkedIn. It might change your strategy just a little bit. So if you want to watch that video, LinkedIn Algorithm Update 2022, I outline, I think there's 6 different things that they've changed. Now I don't even remember. It was either 5 or 6 different changes that have been made to the algorithm. And so if you want to learn some of those changes, check out that video, and that will definitely be a help, especially for those of you that are using LinkedIn as an important source of your marketing efforts. Give that video a watch. Don't forget the new episode of the podcast at VOpreneur.com, talking about 100 voices who care. I would love to help Claire get to her goal of having that first 100 voice actors by the first meeting. That would be amazing if that's able to happen. That was one I linked in the chat earlier as well. All right, if nobody's got a question, if nobody's got the final question, then we're going to wrap this up. Let me check my schedule very quickly. I do have Free Advice Friday on my schedule for next week, and it is a 1 o'clock Eastern time for next Friday. So hopefully you will be able to join in. And of course, if you ever miss Free Advice Friday, the videos are still there in the YouTube channel. You can always go back and watch them later. And one of the things that I do after they're done is I go through and I make a note of all of the questions that have been asked, and I put chapters into the video, so it makes it really easy. If you don't want, you don't have time to watch the whole entire video, you can just look back through the chapters and see what questions were asked and skip to certain parts of the video. So trying to make it easier for you anyway. But again, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all of your questions. I greatly appreciate it. Whatever you decide to do this weekend, have fun, stay safe, and as always, go find some leads.